years ago, there was a very popular song, and it was called "I'm in Love with a Stripper." And the song was essentially this man's plea with his family, his friends, a bystander, for them to understand his petition as to why he was so infatuated with this adult entertainer. And you can imagine their initial response would be, "We see the reason for the attraction. We understand what you're talking about, but as people who care about you and might think of your best interests, we're not exactly sure that this is the most loyal, the most practical, the most logical companion for you to have." And while that does not necessarily reflect my taste in women, it probably is a very good analogy for my favorite car on earth. And what I want to talk to you about today is the Lamborghini Murcielago LP640, particularly one with a manual gearbox, as that happens to be my favorite car on earth. And I remember the first test of the Murcielago back in 2001, before its 2002 release, where they were out setting the world speed records for the fastest 100 miles, fastest 100 kilometers, and the furthest distance driven in an hour. And that road and track story was just emblazoned on my mind. And for some reason, it doesn't matter how much cars progress or what new technology comes out, there's just no way that cars can be as cool as the ones that existed when you were 15, 18, 20 years old. And so for me, just that perfect car never escaped my mind. So even though I owned other cars with the rental company and personally, I had to have a Mercy, and it had to be a stick. Now, unfortunately, Lamborghini only brought 26 manual versions of the LP640 into the US, so I had quite the hunt to find one. But the idea of actually using and driving a Murcielago is much like what this guy's family must have been saying as he professed his love for the stripper. We're talking about what is fundamentally the most useless car ever conceived and built by man. And you might say that, well, if a Mercy is useless, then certainly a Countach or a Diablo is more useless, but that's not exactly true, because even though the Murcielago was pretty much designed and completed by 98 when Audi bought Lamborghini, it was still built in a time where we knew better. We could make cars better. But the car is too low to go over most driveways or most speed bumps, and you can't see anything out of it. My head doesn't fit inside. It's gets 8 miles a gallon. It barely holds 2 people, barely holds much luggage. It's expensive to work on. It's hard to get parts. Every leading edge is a $20,000 piece of carbon fiber. So it makes very little sense as to why you'd want to use it. But for me, that's exactly why I love the car. It's the uselessness that makes it so perfect. And I love the idea that I am always doing something in precisely the wrong implement. You know, it's like you give 2 people a copy of the SAT, and one person fills it out perfectly over the 4 or 5 hour testing period and turns it in and gets a 1600. The world applauds. The other person takes the test booklet and artistically sketches a Vince Carter or LeBron James slam dunk highlight reel as you flip through it. So at the end of the testing session, he hands in his book, and the administrator flips through and says, "I'm not saying that I'm not impressed. That's just really not what we had in mind when we gave you this." And the same thing is true for the Mercy. The guy next to me in a Tiguan is doing it right. The guy that buys an E-Class gets a 1600. I'm the idiot that's out there using the wrong tool for the job, but having the most fun possible doing it. And it's what I love is that it doesn't matter where you're going. If you're going to the grocery store or a shopping mall or on a road trip to grandma's house, if you do it in a Murcielago, there won't be anybody on the road enjoying themselves more.